سيدنا نبينا محمد. Um, chapter 8, he finds a better home. We agree in Charles Dickens was having a message to the reader. This message was for a reform type. What does reform means? It means to fix, to change. He wanted a change. He wanted to make a change. What kind of change? He wants society to become better. Um, so he foreshadowed um, some drawbacks in the society. يعني ايه drawbacks؟ بعض العيوب اللي في المجتمع that shows corruption of the society, in order that people would change from themselves. Through the very beginning of the story, we have seen lots of injustice to Oliver. No food. He was mistreated by most of the people, not most, actually, all the people he dealt with, starting from the workshop to till the caretaker house, and his journey to London with people's ignorance, to his poverty, to his uh, tiredness, to every misery he has dealt with. And we ended till he found or met the gang of Fagin, and he understood the reason of the game he was playing. He is now at Mr. Brownlow, who was very kind to Oliver. And why finally Oliver met a kind person? It shows that, or Charles Dickens wants to say that if all rich people treat poor people kindly, this would make a great change in our society. If rich people treat poor people kindly, the poor people, we won't find poor people suffering, because the rich people are respecting their feelings and helping them as much as they can. Oliver stayed in Mr. Brownlow's house. He was ill and he laid in bed for several weeks. He was a little better. When he was a little better, he was able to sit in a chair and talk to Mrs. Bedwin. Okay, who is Mrs. Bedwin? She is an old lady who was looking after the house of Mr. Brownlow. His new friends were very kind to him, and Mr. Brownlow gave him new clothes, new pair of shoes, and Mrs. Bedwin fed him with good food and soup, which was strong enough to provide meals for 350 boys in the workhouse, if enough water was added to it. And this shows kindness, shows charity. And one day he sat in Mrs. Bedwin's room, eating his supper. He noticed a picture on the wall. It was the picture of a lady, and he looked at it for a long time. Mrs. Bedwin, are you fond of pictures, dear? Oliver, I don't quite know. I have seen so few that I hardly know. What a beautiful face that lady has. Mrs. Bedwin, oh, artists always make ladies look prettier than they are. Of course, there is exaggeration in her talk. Whose picture is it? Why? I don't know. Does it interest you, Oliver? It's so pretty. We will find that Oliver got interested so much with with the lady's picture, and actually, Mrs. Bidwin would think that the picture would have a bad effect or negative effect on Oliver, so she will remove it. She will remove it, especially when he faints. We will see that Oliver have seen or has recognized that the looks of the lady was so sad. He feels that they are fixed upon him. It seems as if the picture was alive and wanted to speak to him but couldn't. This showed the link between Oliver and the picture because later we will know that this was Oliver's mom. Oliver liked the place so much, so he would ask Mr. Bidwin to stay with him. He doesn't want to leave the house. He wants to live with Mr. Bidwin, Mr. Brownlow is Bidwin. Of course, because he finally found a place where he is well treated. He asked Mr. Brownlow not to send him away. Let me stay and be a servant in your house. He wants to stay even if he was a servant. Mr. Brownlow, you shall stay, and I shall never send you away unless you give me cause. But let me hear your story, Oliver. Where did you come from? Who looked after you when you were small? How did you get into the company in which I found you? You are strong enough now to talk to me about it. Tell me the truth, and I shall look after you as long as I live. Oliver began to cry, and then he started to tell Mr. Brownlow all about Mr. Pumple and the workhouse. Just then a knock was heard on the door. It was Mr. Grimwig, a friend of Mr. Brownlow. Grimwig. He had come to tea. Shall I go, sir? Said Oliver. No, stay here, Mr. Brownlow said. This is young Oliver Twist, the boy I told you about, he said to Mr. Grimwig. Oliver bowed, and the bowing of Oliver we said before that shows how he was a well-brought boy. Mr. Grimwig looked at Oliver. He knew that his friend Mr. Brownlow had a very kind nature and that any boy found in the street might well deceive him. So that the boy is it? And where does he come from? Who is he? What is that? What is he? When are we going to hear the true story of the life and adventures of Oliver Twist? Mr. Grimwick was always suspicious about people. He was completely different from Mr. Brownlow. Tomorrow morning, said Mr. Brownlow, come up to me tomorrow at 10 o'clock, Oliver, and we will talk about it all. Yes, sir, I will tell you what, Mr. Grimwick whispering to Mr. Brownlow, the boy won't come to talk to you about himself tomorrow. You trust people too easily. That boy is deceiving you, my good friend. Mr. Brownlow, he's not. If he's not, said Grimwick, I will eat my head. Of course, this is exaggeration. Can eat his head, but this shows the figurative language that Charles Dickens was always using. At this moment, Mrs. Bidwin came in with some books. The man, the owner of the bookshop, said these books must go back to the shop this evening, sir. She said, you were going to take them yourself. Send Oliver with them, Mr. Grimwig. Mr. Grimwig wanted to test Oliver's honesty, so he asked Mr. Brownlow to send him instead with the books to see if he was going to go back. This means that he was a kind, honest boy. If he didn't, this means that his point of view about the boy was true. If you can trust him, as you say, he would take the books back for you. Yes, do let me take them, if you please, sir, said Oliver. I will run all the way. Of course, Oliver was doing this because he was so grateful. Remember that one of the characteristics of Oliver was he was being grateful to people, and especially to Mr. Brownlow, because he was treating him very well in a kindly way. So he wanted to thank him. He wanted to show him appreciation. So what he would do, he asked to help him. This, again, evidence if you are asked in the exam to talk about Oliver's characteristics, or the character of Oliver. If you are gonna say that Oliver Twist is a grateful boy, and that's it, no. You have to give evidence from the story. يعني مش بس أقول Oliver Twist is a grateful boy واسكت. لا. أنا عندي evidence type. For example, when he asked Mr. Brownlow to help him and take the books back to the bookshop. كده أنا بدعم. I'm supporting my answer. مش بس بكتب كده وخلاص grateful واسكت honest واسكت innocent واسكت. لا. I have always to give evidence زي ما احنا متفقين، زي ما أنا بقول كل مرة. You may go, my dear, he said to Oliver. Tell the man at the bookshop that you have brought these books back and that you have come to pay the £4 10. That you have brought these books back and that you have come to pay the £4 10, which I owe him. Here is a £5 note. You must bring me back 10 shillings. I won't be long, sir, replied Oliver in an eager voice. He was so excited to help him. He put the money in his pocket and the books under his arm, bowed, and left the room. Mrs. Bedouin took him to the door and told him the quickest way. She was so caring and she was so kind to him. Bless his sweet face, she said. When he had gone, somehow I can't bear to let him out of my sight. He will be back in 20 minutes, said Mr. Brownlow. Oh, you really expect to come back, do you? Said Mr. Grimwig. Don't you? Mr. Brownlow smiling. Mr. Grimwig, no, I don't. That boy has new clothes on, good books under his arm, £5 note in his pocket. He would join his old friends and thieves and laugh at you. If ever that boy returns to this house, sir, I will eat my head. This shows the suspicious character of Mr. Grimwig. Evidence, evidence, evidence. Support your answer. With these words, he sat down and the two men waited for Oliver's return. طيب احنا كده خلصنا chapter 8. chapter 8 فيه ايه؟ فيه الكاركتر بتاعت مستر براونلو. طيب وفي كمان foreshadowing about Oliver's mom in the picture. the character of Mrs. Bedouin. Not only that, but also the main message of Charles Dickens to the society, which is the message of reform and change. Chapter 9, mainly, it's about highlighting Oliver's naivety and kindness. I will stop here. Tomorrow, inshallah, we will read chapter 9 and 10 live too. أتمنى إن يكون الفيديو بيفيدكم، ويا ريت تكتبوا لي في لو بيفيدكم فعلا إيه اللي انتوا محتاجينه أكتر. امتحان لو محتاجين أي grammar lessons واقفة قدامكم and you want to live عايزين أحل معاكم حاجة, please write to me. I'm waiting for all your comments. ببقى مبسوطة قوي قوي. Wish you the best. um, take care of yourselves and ركزوا كويس قوي في الامتحان. دايما قولوا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم, وإن شاء الله ربنا هيكرمكم وهيوفقكم. Take care of yourselves and I love you. Waiting for your comments عشان خاطر أعمل لكم فيديوهات كتير. Write to me what you want. Don't forget to subscribe, share the videos, and good luck. Bye bye.